Hello students, in this session we are going to study about pollinating agencies. What are the pollinating agencies, how it actually occur and its role in the pollination. So in our previous classes we already studied about cross pollination. I told you a statement in cross pollination that the transfer of your pollen grains from one flower's anther to another flower's stigma is otherwise known as your pollination. That means in the total process of transfer of your pollen grains from one flower's anther to another flower's stigma, that means in cross pollination I told you that. So the transfer technique takes place by a certain type of agency or a certain type of vector. So today we are going to study about that vectors and that agencies only. So the pollinating agencies are mostly divided into two types. One is your biotic agencies, another one is your abiotic. So first is your abiotic, next one is your biotic. So in abiotic agencies, in this today's class we just discuss about our abiotic. So in abiotic mostly two types of agencies are there. One is your wind, another one is your water. So first one is your anemophily. That means anemophily means pollination takes place by wind. That means it is otherwise known as your wind pollination. I again repeat, your pollinating agencies are divided into two types. One is your abiotic, another one is your biotic. In this particular session we are going to discuss about abiotic, and abiotic introduces two types of pollinations. One is your anemophily, another one is your hydrophily. One is takes place by your wind pollination, another one is your takes place by your water pollination. So first one is your wind pollination agencies. So first one is your anemophily. Anemophily means pollination takes place by the agency of wind. That means agency of wind, the pollination which takes place by the agency of wind is otherwise known as your anemophily. And the flowers which are included in wind pollination, the flowers which are included in wind pollination is otherwise known as your anemophilous. That means the flowers are otherwise known as your anemophilous flower, and the anemophilous flower contains some of your characteristics. So the characters are, your first one, flowers are small, colorless, inconspicuous, odorless and nectarless. The flowers which are included in anemophilous mostly small in nature and colorless, inconspicuous, your odorless, that means no scent is there, and nectarless, that means no nectar gland is also present. Nextly, the two oles, that means your first two oles, that means accessory oles of a flower, that means your calyx and corolla, both are absent or reduced. Just remember it, the two oles, that means two accessory oles of your flower, that means your calyx and corolla, both are absent or reduced, but stamens and carpels are well developed. That means your male and female reproductive oles are mostly developed, that means well developed. Two oles are reduced, that means absent, that means your calyx, corolla are absent, and stamens and carpels, that means your male reproductive ole and female reproductive ole, both are well developed. Next one, anthers are usually versatile, that is free to swing in any direction. That means your anthers are versatile. Versatile means it is free to move in any direction, and dispersal of your pollen grains takes place by wind. So you just take an example that this is your filament and this is your bilobed anther structure. When the anthers, that means the term versatile means it is free. That means it can move in any direction by the direction of your wind, and dispersal of your pollen grain takes place by the direction of your wind. So these are included. That means it is on one of the very important point in which anthers are usually versatile and free to swing in any direction. That means pollen grains are, that means anther are free and swing to any direction. That means dispersal of pollen grains takes place by the direction of your wind. Nextly, pollen grains are small, light, dry, dusty and sometimes winged. That means the pollen grains are small in nature, very small in nature, light, that means lightweight, dry and dusty and sometimes winged. Because of the wing nature and because of the light, dry and dusty nature, it can move a long direction, that means a long distance in wind, and mostly pollen grains can also travel, that means these winged pollen grains are also travel 1300 kilometers. So it can a far, that means a far away these pollen grains are also move. So this is also an important feature. Next one is flowers produces high quality of pollen grains. That means produces huge quality of pollen grains. Huge quality of pollen grains means a lot of pollen grains are produced by your wind pollination. That means your examples are your grass. You may take your example as your wheat, sugarcane, maize, coconut, bamboo. In these things, a number of pollen grains are transferred in air. So a huge number of pollen grains are transferred by the wind. So a huge quantities of, that means a huge quantities of pollen grains are transferred by your wind pollination. So these are the some of your characteristics of your Anemophilus, which is otherwise known as wind pollination. So next one is your hydrophilus. In hydrophily, that means the pollen grains are transferred by wind. It is wind pollinated and this is water pollinated. That means pollination takes place by water. Water pollinated means pollination takes place by the agency of water is called hydrophily. In our previous statement, I told you that by the agency of wind is called anemophily. And the opposite is your water. That means pollination takes place by the agency of water is called your hydrophily. And the flowers which are included in water pollination are called as your hydrophilus. That means the technique is otherwise known as your hydrophilus. That means the flowers which are included in your hydrophily technique otherwise known as your hydrophilus flower. So these are some of your characters of your hydrophilus flower. That means flowers are small, colorless, inconspicuous, odorless and nectarless, as same as your previous one. So flowers are small in nature, colorless and odorless and inconspicuous and nectarless. That means no nectar gland is present. Nextly, flowers are usually unisexual and open underwater or at the surface of water. Remember one thing, flowers are usually unisexual. That means a single sex organ is present over here. In our previous statement, I told you that bisexual flowers are there. That means both the sex organs are present. That means your calyx, corolla are absent, and both the holes, that means your stamen and pistil, both are present. But in this case, unisexual flower means single sex organ is present in a flower and open underwater or at the surface of water. That means in the submerged body of water or the surface of the water. That means the pollen grains are open. That means the flowers are usually unisexual and open underwater. That means it may be open underwater or at the surface of the water. That means at the surface of water surface. Nextly, stigma is sticky with waxy coating. Why it is sticky and waxy? It is an important question. That means stigma is sticky and waxy because the pollen grains are floated on the surface of water or underwater. That means if the stigma is sticky, then it can firmly attach. That means the pollen grains are firmly attached to the surface of the stigma and the pollination takes place. So the surface is mostly sticky and waxy in nature. So waxy coating is there. Nextly, floating aquatic plants like lotus and water lily pollination takes place by insects. Just underline it. Floating aquatic plants like lotus and water lily. These two things are not included in your hydrophily technique. These are not hydrophilous flowers. That means your lotus and water lily are not your hydrophilous flower. That means they just float on the surface of your water. So insects are the pollinating agencies. So these are not included in your hydrophilous flower by the insects. That means the pollination of your lotus and water lily mostly takes place by your insects, because these are present in your upper surface of your water body. But in submerged aquatic plants, that means in the underground water level, pollination is brought by the water medium. That means pollination is takes place by your water medium. And the examples of your water medium are your hydrilla, Valseraria and hilum. That means your Critos hilum and Valseraria are the most primitive example of your hydrophily technique. That means your Valseraria containing a feather-like containing a number of scale leaves, and the flowers, that means your male reproducible, female reproducible, both are in different sex organs. That means some of the flowers are containing the male organs and some of your female organs. And male pollinating, that means your male organ is a submerged water body and your female organ is your upper surface of the water body. So pollen grains are float out, and the dehiscence of the pollen grains that takes place in the submerged water body. Then the pollen grains are uplifted and surface of the water. Then the pollination takes place in your Valseraria. So these are the some of the important features of your hydrophily, and these are some of the features of your Anemophily. So this is all about your abiotic pollinating agencies. That means included two type of agencies. One is your wind, another one is your water. In our next session we are going to study about our biotic agencies, and which included insects, birds and a number of things. So till then stay tuned. Thank you.